A child giggles uncontrollably after dropping a spoon. There's no punchline, no setup, no clever twist of words. Just joy, pure, eruptive, irrational joy. It bubbles out of them like a natural spring, unstoppable, sincere. The spoon hits the floor with a clatter, and somehow that alone is enough to send them into peals of laughter. They're not performing for anyone. They're not trying to be funny. They laugh because something deep inside them says, "This is delight." And if you pay attention, you'll start to notice something strange, something quietly heartbreaking. Children laugh like this all the time, hundreds of times a day, in fact. But as we grow older, that joy begins to vanish. Adults laugh maybe a dozen times a day, if that, and often it's restrained, polite, controlled. Rarely that same belly-deep, unfiltered outburst we remember from childhood. Why? Why does laughter, one of the first things we do as humans, before language, before reason, fade from our lives as we age? If laughter is so spontaneous in the young, so neurologically wired, so evolutionarily ancient, why do we seem to lose it? Science once dismissed laughter as a frivolous side effector, quirky reaction to jokes or surprise. But today, researchers are uncovering a very different story. Laughter, it turns out, might be one of the brain's oldest and most fundamental forms of communication. Not just a response to humor, but a survival mechanism, a bonding tool, a signal of safety, even a kind of emotional language that predates speech. Rats laugh when tickled. Chimps laugh during play. Infants laugh long before they learn to speak. And human laughter isn't just random, it activates deep neural circuits involved in emotion, memory, and social connection. In fact, some scientists believe that laughter may have come before language, that our ancestors used it to signal peace, pleasure, and play, long before they could form a single word. This is not just about jokes. This is not about comedy. This is about something primal, something baked into the nervous system of mammals, a neurological celebration of existence itself. And the tragedy, most of us forget how to do it. We grow up, we grow serious, and the laughter grows quiet. So what really happens to laughter as we age? Do we lose something essential, or just forget how to hear it? And more importantly, can we get it back? Laughter has always fascinated philosophers. To the ancient Greeks, it was a window into the soul's hidden games. Plato saw laughter as a response to seeing others stumble, a form of judgment masked in mirth. Aristotle echoed this, suggesting that we laugh at the incongruity or inferiority of others, a flash of delight in the absurd or the flawed. Thomas Hobbes, centuries later, refined this into what became known as the superiority theory of laughter. We laugh because we feel suddenly elevated, cleverer, stronger, or more secure than the object of our amusement. Laughter, in this view, was power, social leverage disguised as play. But then came a quieter, more observational mind, Charles Darwin. Watching infants across cultures, Darwin noticed something that didn't fit these lofty philosophical explanations. Babies, only a few months old, laughed freely, and they did so without any cultural training, without the complexities of status, irony, or judgment. They laughed at faces, at motion, at touch. Their laughter wasn't sharpened like a weapon, it was given freely, indiscriminately. It wasn't about superiority at all. It was about connection. Today, neuroscience confirms what Darwin intuited. Laughter is not simply a social luxury. It is a core biological function. MRI studies have shown that laughter activates some of the brain's most ancient regions, areas far older than language or logic. The amygdala, known for processing fear and pleasure. The thalamus, a relay hub between body and brain. The gray, a brainstem region involved in pain suppression, maternal bonding, and vocalization in mammals. These are not places reserved for clever jokes. These are survival circuits, which means laughter is not an afterthought. It's a primal signal of safety. Chemically, laughter unleashes a potent cocktail: oxytocin, the bonding hormone that deepens trust and social cohesion; endorphins, the body's natural painkillers; dopamine, which fuels pleasure and motivation. In other words, laughter is not a byproduct of happiness, it is a biological tool that creates it. And in childhood, that tool is everywhere. Babies don't laugh because they understand jokes. They laugh to signal engagement, to say, "I see you." When a baby laughs and a parent laughs back, their brains synchronize measurable waves of neural activity aligning across two skulls. These shared moments of joy strengthen emotional attachment, lay down patterns of empathy, and even shape the early architecture of the brain. Laughter, in this stage of life, is a kind of invisible glue that bonds child and caregiver, friend and friend, self and world. But then, something changes. Studies show that while children laugh over 300 times a day, most adults barely reach 20, some far fewer. The spontaneous giggle becomes the polite chuckle. The belly laugh becomes the social smirk. Why? Stress, time, pressure, social norms, embarrassment, the demands of work, the expectation to act your age. As we grow older, we trade in spontaneous joy for curated seriousness. We flatten our emotional expressions in the name of professionalism, composure, adulthood. But what do we lose in the process? This isn't just a cultural shift. It may be a crisis. The sharp decline in adult laughter could be a symptom of a broader erosion of emotional regulation, of community connection, of psychological resilience. Laughter is not just fun, it's medicine. And without it, the body pays a price. Depression, anxiety, loneliness, even immune dysfunction have all been linked to a lack of positive social connection, the very kinds of connection that shared laughter so effortlessly provides. So perhaps, the question isn't just why don't adults laugh more, but what have we designed our lives to suppress? Because if laughter really is a form of survival communication, if it wires our brains for trust, play, and emotional safety, then our silence may be more than a loss of joy. It may be a signal of something much deeper and much more urgent. In the mid-1990s, neuroscientist Jock Panksepp made a peculiar discovery that would reshape how science understood laughter. Working with rats, not humans, Panksepp and his team began to study what happened when the animals were gently tickled. The results were unexpected. The rats emitted high-pitched ultrasonic chirps far above the range of human hearing, seemed strangely consistent. At first, these chirps puzzled researchers, but then something remarkable emerged. The chirps weren't random. They increased during play. They peaked during tickling. And when the researchers stopped, the rats sought out more. They followed the tickling hand, tried to prolong the interaction, even displayed social behaviors that suggested they enjoyed the experience. In essence, the rats were laughing, and they wanted to keep laughing. Panksepp had revealed something astonishing. Laughter wasn't uniquely human. It wasn't a cultural invention. It didn't require language, intelligence, or even a sense of humor. It was deeply biological, wired into the mammalian brain. A response to play, to gentle touch, to safety. And perhaps most importantly, it was a loop, a reward system. Laughter was pleasurable in itself, reinforcing the behaviors that made it possible. The rats came back for more because laughter felt good, because play, surprise, and safety were intrinsically rewarding. This was the tipping point. Laughter, once thought of as a frivolous luxurious indulgence of civilized minds, was now being traced to the most ancient parts of the nervous system. It wasn't about jokes. It wasn't about irony or satire. It was about something far more primal. Laughter was a signal. You are safe here. You are accepted. You can play. But here lies the paradox. Children still live in that world of play. Their laughter spills out during the most meaningless activities, spinning in circles, making silly noises, building imaginary worlds with no purpose other than fun. They don't need a reason to laugh. Their brains still interpret unpredictability, novelty, and shared joy as enough. And in those moments, their nervous systems light up like the rats rewarded, soothed, reinforced. Adults, however, are different. We've been trained to require context. A joke must be clever. A moment must justify amusement. Laughter has to be earned in adult life. Laughter becomes conditional, tied to performance, to timing, to social acceptability. It becomes a product of reasoning rather than a release of feeling. Play becomes immature, surprise becomes awkward, and joy becomes scheduled, if permitted at all. Worse, culture often weaponizes laughter. In some societies, adults who laugh too much or too loudly are seen as foolish, undignified, or even suspicious. Gender divides appear, too. Studies show that women's laughter is more likely to be dismissed or sexualized, while men's laughter may be seen as assertive or dominant. In professional settings, laughter can signal danger as incompetence, unseriousness, or loss of control. People learn to mute it, to bury it, to smile instead. We have taken something primal, something that once said, "You belong here," and turned it into something that must be justified, filtered, explained, hidden, and yet the biological circuitry remains. The same ancient reward system that lights up when a rat is tickled is still alive in us, but it's often dormant, silenced by a life of tension, vigilance, and self-conscious performance. This is the deep conflict. Our nervous systems crave laughter as a signal of trust and safety, but our social environments increasingly punish it. We long for joy, but we require permission to express it. We were born to laugh not because it's funny, but because it's human, and yet we've made it conditional, earned, regulated. In doing so, we've lost something more than amusement. We've lost a vital link to ourselves and to one another. As children grow older, something subtle but significant shifts within the brain. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic, control, and inhibition, begins to mature. This development is essential. It allows for focus, self-regulation, and long-term planning, but it comes with a cost. The same circuitry that helps us sit still in class or wait our turn in line also dampens spontaneous emotional expression. Laughter, once eruptive and effortless, becomes mediated, filtered through layers of social awareness, embarrassment, and restraint. In essence, the body still wants to laugh, but the brain now asks for permission, and when laughter is suppressed not occasionally, but habitually, there are consequences. Research shows that chronic inhibition of joyful expression can disrupt immune function, elevate cortisol levels, and weaken the body's natural stress buffers. Laughter is more than noise, it's biochemical therapy. It activates parasympathetic recovery. It downregulates fear. It signals to the body that the danger has passed, that safety has returned. Without it, many of us remain trapped in a state of low-grade vigilance, alert, but disconnected, alive, but not fully engaged. Historically, laughter has always had power. In medieval courts, jesters weren't merely comic relief, they were among the only voices sanctioned to speak truth to authority. Through satire and absurdity, they could expose hypocrisy, challenge injustice, and articulate what others dared not say. The laughter they provoked wasn't just entertainment, it was a social release valve, a momentary suspension of hierarchy. That same threat explains why laughter is often policed by regimes. In Nazi Germany, mocking the Führer was not just frowned upon, it was a crime. Because laughter, unlike protest, is slippery, subversive. It moves quickly through crowds. It disarms fear and punctures illusions. Laughter has long served as a tool of resistance. During the U.S. Civil Rights Movement, protesters used humor not as escapism, but as strategy. Jokes and parody became instruments of unity, defiance, and humanity in the face of brutal oppression. A shared laugh among marchers was not a distraction from danger, it was proof that fear had not won. It reaffirmed their common identity, even under threat. This is the deep, often forgotten truth of laughter. It is not always light. Sometimes it is armor. Yet in modern life, that armor is often misplaced. Adults now spend most of their lives in task mode, goal-directed, performance-oriented, tightly scheduled. The space for exploration, whimsy, and play narrows with age. Children, by contrast, live in play mode, where outcomes are secondary, where the unknown is embraced, and where curiosity drives action. But what modern psychology now confirms is that play is not optional. It is essential for emotional healing, for learning, and laughter is its soundtrack. The irony is, as a culture, we've never produced more content designed to make us laugh. The internet overflows with memes, GIFs, and viral videos. But something is missing. Online humor, while clever, often lacks the embodied resonance of real, synchronous laughter. You might type LOL, but your face remains still. Alone with a screen, you scroll through 1,000 jokes without actually laughing once. Digital humor is scalable, but often disembodied. And real laughter, the kind that arises from shared presence, physical synchrony, and emotional safety, cannot be fully replicated through pixels. This disconnect is starting earlier than we think. In many schools, recess is shrinking. Unstructured playtime is reduced in favor of test preparation, structured activity, and performance tracking. The result? Anxiety is rising. Creativity is narrowing. And even among children, laughter is in decline. Teachers report quieter classrooms, less spontaneous joy, more behavioral rigidity. The very developmental stage, where play should be most protected, is being reshaped to resemble adult task culture. And the cost is steep, not just in mood, but in learning. Because children don't just play to have fun, they play to adapt, to regulate, to make sense of the world. And laughter, as part of that ecosystem, is not a luxury, it's a necessity. We are watching a slow erosion of play mode across generations, and with it, we are losing access to one of the most ancient, healing, and human parts of ourselves. The question now is not just why laughter is disappearing, it's what else disappears with it and whether we have the courage to reclaim it. For most of our lives, we assume laughter is a result of joyous, spontaneous outburst when something delightful or amusing bubbles up from within. It's something we wait for, something we hope will arrive in moments of happiness, as though laughter were the final punctuation to a story already written. But new research has revealed a profound twist. We've misunderstood the sequence entirely. Laughter is not merely the outcome of joy, it is the creator of it. Studies from Stanford University and Oxford have found that laughter, whether authentic or not, can dramatically improve physical and emotional well-being. In clinical settings, patients engaged in group laughter therapy reported reduced chronic pain, lowered inflammation markers, and faster post-surgical healing. Remarkably, the presence of jokes or even a sense of humor was not required. The body didn't wait for something to be funny. It responded to the act of laughing itself, and this is where it becomes radical. Even fake laughter, especially when done in groups, often transforms into real laughter. The social contagion of mirth, the rhythmic act of exhaling in bursts, the bodily engagement of facial muscles, these are not just mechanical behaviors. They activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which governs rest, recovery, and healing. Cortisol levels drop, heart rate slows, digestion improves, the immune system strengthens. Simply put, laughter resets the body's stress system. It shifts us out of threat mode and into connection mode. This appends everything we thought we knew. We don't laugh because we're happy. We're happy because we laugh. The cause and effect runs in both directions. But the initiating spark may not be emotion. It may be action. It may be the breath, the vocalization, the physical expression of joy that summons the feeling itself. In this light, laughter is less a symptom of well-being and more a tool for creating it. And perhaps the most devastating insight of all is this. Maybe we don't naturally lose laughter as we age. Maybe it doesn't dry up like a spring gone quiet. Maybe it's trained out of us, suppressed, disciplined, conditioned to retreat in the face of expectations, pressures, judgments. We learn to silence it in classrooms, to filter it in boardrooms, to shrink it around strangers. Not because the urge disappears, but because we fear what it might say about us, that we're vulnerable, that we're unguarded, that we're alive. But beneath the surface, the laughter remains. It waits in the muscles of the diaphragm, in the wiring of ancient brain circuits, in the memory of play and touch and surprise. It's there, waiting to be reawakened. Not by punchlines, but by permission. This is the twist. Laughter is not a reward we receive when life is good. It is the practice that makes life feel good. It's not the echo of joy, it's the drumbeat that brings it back across the world. A quiet revolution is taking place, one that repositions laughter, not as a trivial indulgence, but as a core strategy for health, healing, and human resilience. In wellness centers, corporate retreats, trauma clinics, and even elderly care homes, laughter is no longer something that merely happens by chance. It's something that is practiced, deliberately, scientifically, because the data is now undeniable. Laughter yoga, a movement that began in India and has since spread globally, combines deep breathing exercises with sustained, often artificial laughter in group settings. The premise is simple. The body doesn't distinguish between real and fake laughter. The benefits come from the act itself. Participants often start with forced chuckles, but within minutes, those chuckles become contagious, spiraling into genuine laughter. Heart rates lower, shoulders relax, faces soften, and what begins as a kind of odd group ritual turns into an experience of deep emotional release. People leave lightened not just physically, but psychologically, in therapeutic contexts. Laughter is now being woven into trauma recovery. Play therapy, long used with children, is increasingly being adapted for adults, especially those with PTSD. These sessions don't rely on jokes or comedy, but on structured forms of imaginative play, body movement, and group bonding that encourage emotional safety. And within that container, laughter often reemerges, not as a response to something funny, but as a spontaneous sign of nervous system recovery, as a signal that the body is shifting from defense to openness, from bracing to belonging. Even in the corporate and medical worlds, humor is being treated with new seriousness. Hospitals now train clown therapists to work with elderly patients not just to entertain, but to engage. In care homes, these professionals use playful routines, gentle teasing, and absurdity to reduce isolation, boost mood, and even improve memory. The results are measurable. Residents show better cognitive function, more social interaction, and reduced agitation. In clinical trials, humor interventions in medical staff have led to reduced burnout, improved patient relationships, and even faster surgical recovery in those who laugh regularly before and after procedures. The scientific mechanisms behind these effects are becoming clearer by the day. Laughter reduces cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. It boosts immune activity, particularly natural killer cells that help fight infection and cancer. It improves cardiovascular function by stimulating circulation and promoting oxygen intake. And it does something even subtler in the brain. It enhances memory consolidation by tagging positive, emotional experiences, making them easier to recall later. In essence, laughter helps the brain practice joy, wiring it in as a learned, retrievable state. This has profound implications for mental health, because when we rehearse sadness, fear, or vigilance, too often our brains get better at accessing those states. But laughter disrupts that pattern. It rehearses joy. It trains the body to remember what it feels like to be safe, to be open, to be together. Real-world stories bring this data to life. In war-torn regions, psychologists have introduced playful group routines for displaced children and adults. The laughter that emerges is not always easy, but it's powerful. It says, asterisk, I am still here. I can still feel. I can still belong. Asterisk, in refugee camps, hospitals, schools, and clinics. Laughter becomes a quiet act of resistance, a reclaiming of the nervous system from the grip of trauma, and the big picture becomes clear. Laughter isn't a luxury. It's not icing on the cake of well-being. It is well-being. It's the brain's way of regulating, connecting, and recovering. It is biological resilience, in motion, portable, accessible, profoundly human. We have spent decades minimizing it, professionalizing it, delaying it until it feels earned. But what science and story now converge to say is this: laughter isn't the reward, it's the medicine, the breath that resets, the bridge between bodies, the spark that keeps us human in even the darkest times. And maybe that's the insight we've been waiting for, not that we need reasons to laugh, but that laughter is the reason. A grandfather kneels beside his granddaughter in the garden, his knees cracking softly as he lowers himself to her level. She's holding a wilted dandelion like it's a magic wand, her eyes wide with mischief. Without warning, she scrunches up her face into a ridiculous expression, part lion, part fish, part something entirely of her own invention. He chuckles. Low, surprised sound that bubbles up from his chest. She bursts into laughter, full and bright, her whole body shaking with delight. And in that moment, the years between them disappear. There's no gap of age or experience, only two nervous systems dancing in synchrony. One ancient, one new, both alive in joy. And perhaps that's the truth we've been circling all along. Laughter isn't just what we do when something is funny. It's how we say, asterisk, I'm here. I feel safe. I see you. Asterisk, it's a biological language for connection, trust, and belonging. Signal more honest than words, older than speech. In its rhythm, we find something deeper than amusement. We find recognition. For too long, we've mistaken laughter as something light, something to be reserved for jokes and parties. But real laughter, the kind that shakes the body and silences thought, trivial at all. It's profound. It tells us we are not alone, that we can let go, that our guard can lower, and still, miraculously, we remain intact. It's not the opposite of seriousness. It is seriousness transformed to pain, metabolized, tension released, life felt fully and freely. Laughter is emotional truth, made audible, and maybe, just maybe, to feel young again doesn't mean to erase the lines from our faces or reverse time's march. Maybe it means something simpler, more sacred. To laugh without needing permission, to play without needing a purpose, to let joy rise in the body, not as a reward, but as a right. Not because the world is perfect, but because, even in its imperfection, we can still find each other, and in that shared recognition, let go. In the end, the child and the elder laugh not for any reason at all, but because their hearts remember something the mind has long forgotten. That laughter is not the end of the story, it is the beginning of being fully alive.